Hello, welcome to PodFic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldscythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will continue reading the Silmarillion / Lord of the Rings fic from Archive of Our Own by myself, called The Wraith of Himring. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Wraith of Himring by Goldscythe. Chapter 9. The Daughter. Toriel coughed. She looked over the battlefield. Orcs of Dol Guldur were finally all eradicated. He could see the green-dressed elves under her command pick themselves up and gather their wits. The grey-garbed Galadrim of Lorien already moving through the field, picking arrows, aiding injured. Her side ached dully. She had taken a kick to the side that had sent her crashing into a tree. She looked up as he felt a hand on her shoulder. "Gallion, you survived." "Yes, how did you? Yet there is one I cannot find. Have you seen our king?" "No, not since Lady Galadriel brought the walls down. The shockwave blasted everyone off their feet. It feels humbling in a terrifying way, to see the power of the Noldor of old." "Noldor?" Gallion looked at her. "Hadn't you been raised to the stories? She's the daughter of Finarfin, the youngest brother of Fëanor the Kinslayer. She long lived in Doriath." "Our king never mentioned that. Does that explain why he loathes to deal with her?" "Her cousins attacked Menegroth and killed Dior, who was kin to her husband, Lord Celeborn." Of course, she had heard the stories, but she had always found them horrifying and sad. She and Legolas had often found the stories of old too sad. As Gallion went to look for King Thranduil, she leaned back against the tree, feeling along her side. As she looked over the battlefield again, it felt eerily familiar. In the distance, she saw a mountain of bodies. As she blinked in confusion, the macabre side was gone, and it was still the same battlefield, where their injured were being gathered. He saw a figure of white and silver return from the ruins of the fortress, steps weary and heavy. There was this exhaustion in her that ran deep to her fea. Out of instinct, she quickly made her way to her side, before anyone else could. "My lady, do you need help?" she asked, and as the silver-blue eyes looked at her, she heard her gasp. Galadriel's gaze searched her face, taking in all the details and making her self-conscious. Then she heard a voice in her head. "Who are you, child?" She was startled, struggling to comprehend for a while. "Toriel, where did you get that necklace you wear?" Out of instinct, she grabbed it and hid it under the collar of her tunic again. "I was found with it." "Who are your parents?" This mental interrogation made her nervous, and she was sure she could feel the gaze of many others on her back. Her thoughts went back to the forest around them. She was found in the woods, hidden by low branches. She only remembered someone with ashen blonde hair. "I am an orphan, Sylvan elf. I was found in the woods, injured. My people were slaughtered by the orcs, or that is what King Thranduil told me. The blades you fight with are not Sylvan, nor Sindar. They are Noldorin blades, seen countless battles. They belong to a set of 4, 2 longer and 2 shorter." Toriel stepped back. "Noldor again. Did they belong to your kin? I did not steal them. They were found beside a slain Eleth and given to me. I know 2 elves who fought with such blades. One died long before your time. The other has disappeared from knowledge. I knew your father." She reeled. She was shown images of battlefields, of a tall, raven-haired elf with 2 blades, sparring with another with only one hand, whose hair was flaming red, much like hers. Then the visions turned into vivid imagery she could only imagine being from Valinor, of the same 2 elves, unmarred by battles, laughing and playing with what she guessed being younger siblings. The raven-haired one was always in focus, playing a harp in the background, occasionally pulling the instrument away from the golden-haired boy around his age, a necklace identical to hers on him, a star. "No!" she said. She couldn't be of Noldor blood. I'm an Sylvan elf, not one of them. I'm not related to kinslayers. You look like your grandmother. Only her family has red hair. 3 of your uncles did. No! Tauriel screamed out loud at Galadriel. I am not! If she hadn't been scared before, she sure was now. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. The Osanwe left her mind open, and she saw memories from within her own mind, long forgotten. Her mother, holding her, dancing with her, singing. Then, dark clothes and a dark braid filled her vision. She was being held against someone's chest, humming, lulling her to sleep. Low, hoarse singing in a tongue she did not understand. There was a sadness in that voice, but also the smile was gentle, and she felt loved. Coarse hands brushed her hair, and no matter where he was, she was always there with him, in his arms. How? I knew him when he was young. He did not want to do any of it. He loved music above all else. Music and horses. Tauriel. Galadriel switched back to Osanwe. You have one cousin still alive, and one of his foster sons. She raised a hand to touch the necklace. She had guessed it had been star-shaped, but several pieces had broken over the years, leaving the pendant misshapen. 8 prongs had it once held. Now only 3 remained whole. She choked back a sob. 8 great star. She had seen it in one of the history books. The device of Feanor. How could she face her king now? Did he know? What would he say? What would Legolas say? She was about to turn and run when a familiar presence halted her, a hand coming to lay on her shoulder once more. She looked up to see Thranduil look at her worriedly. He was mainly well, at first glance, but weary, with a now closed wound on his right cheek. Tauriel. Did you know? Her voice shook. Know what? Of whose daughter I'm supposed to be. Upon the barely veiled confusion on his face, she could guess the rest. He did not know. Didn't you even suspect anything? No. Noldor blades could have been gotten through looting. I have witnessed it firsthand. Mithrandir and Thorin Oakenshield held Noldorin swords. So, I might not be. She hoped to deny it, but Galadriel rested her hands on her shoulders from behind. Tauriel wrenched herself away from the elven nobles. No, I am not. I'm not a Noldor. I'm not of a kinslayer's blood. I'm the daughter of the forest, Sylvan. I am not! She cut herself off and ran from the battlefield before she could scream it any louder. The calls of her friends and of Thranduil fell short, and she ignored them, just running, despite the ache in her side. Tears were blurring her vision and making her stumble against trees and trip over roots, but she got up again, until she stumbled into the clearing they had left their horses, startling some of them. She had kept going until collapsing. One mare, approaching her trembling and weeping form on the ground, nosing her gently. I'm not a daughter of a kinslayer. My father was not a kinslayer, she croaked, sobbing, petting the horse's face. Upon her offering, she got onto the mare's back. I need to get away, please. Night had fallen when her tears had finally dried. The mare had kept going along the edge of the forest, first galloping as she had been urged to, until just gently trotting. Her cheeks were crusted with dried tears, streaking through what remained of specks of black. Her hair must have been a wild mess. She looked up as the mare halted. She was at a clearing, long overgrown ruins here and there. It was the remains of a settlement, stones still charred from the fire. The moon seemed to illuminate one house in particular through the canopy. Something in there glowed, and she dropped down to investigate. There was something so naggingly familiar about this place, how the buildings had been situated. A fox had dug a den through the rotten floorboards and brought up something glowing, burying it in a pile of leaves and leaving it there. She drew one of her blades, shifting through the rotting leaves and small animal bones with it to see a small orb that glowed from within. She hesitated to touch it, but to her touch it seemed to warm, even getting brighter. Expecting it to do something, she waited, holding her breath, but nothing happened. She could see old marks of where it had been woven into something to leave it hanging like an apple of light. It wasn't similar to what the Sindar used to illuminate their halls. It was different and felt more ancient. She got up and took a few steps back, then used the light of the orb to investigate the rest of the ruin. As she moved towards a corner, she heard a sound from beneath her feet. Using her boot, she cleaned the floor, sweeping aside what remained of a carpet to see one of the floorboards with carvings. The carvings were of vines and a harp, with the now familiar 8-rayed star. He stepped on it again, and it seemed to almost ring. Kneeling back down, she used her blade to find the edges of the board, finding it to be simply a square plank. Underneath, she saw a harp, resting on blue and red. It was intricate and ancient, still vibrant, and upon touching the strings, rang with a clear sound. She had seen that harp. "Atta! Play!" she had called out. She was swiftly scooped up and given a kiss on her forehead. Now of all times. "Yes, harp!" "All right, my little songbird." "Nana, sing!" "This is where the blades and the doll were found," a voice said from behind her. She whirled around to see her old friend, Thelion. "I found you from the woods. You had fled, tripped, and struck your head. The trees were hiding you, whispering of protection. The way you clung to the doll, we figured this was your home once, and the slain Eleth your mother. We figured since there were no elven blade markings on her, the blades were left by your father. King Thranduil and the late queen both agreed they belonged to you." "Am I really half Nolda? How could you take me in?" "King Orofer was against it, but then Prince and Princess were hard-headed. They had Legolas, who was near the same age. I had a son your age as well. Your hair is darker red than what you can find within all elven realms. We thought you were probably just an illegitimate child and nothing more. The pendant could have been from any follower, or, as we hoped was the case, just a stolen trinket. Lady Galadriel said she knew him. I didn't want it to be true, but my memories are coming back, and it makes my heart ache so much. He wasn't here to protect us. They came before sunrise. There was no warning. Much evil was afoot that year. I doubt he would have survived if he left his place here. They have served you well." "Do you know what this is?" she asked, raising the orb she still clutched. "I'm not sure, but it reminds me of what I read in Imladris and what they have there. Feanorian lamps, or lanterns they are called, crafted by Feanor, his son Gorofin, and his son Celebrimbor. Only Feanorians can use them, I've heard. They never go out unless by their hands. You know a lot of them." She narrowed her eyes. Thelion shrugged. "I was often the messenger between realms. Imladris has a vast library, run by Erestor, Lord Elrond's chief counselor. Any visitor is free to read the books and scrolls. The whole library is lit by these. As Thelion took the orb, it dimmed, but did not go out. When he handed it back, it reacted immediately to her touch. That proves your heritage. I suggest you go there. Lord Elrond was raised by Maglar Feanorion. There is something Feanorian in the counselor as well. What about... I'll handle King Thranduil. Go." End of chapter 9. Stay tuned.